Good morning, everybody,
Morning.
and welcome to our first work session meeting. This should be very interesting. We're going to start off with an invocation from Commissioner Dickerson, and then we'll have our first delegate is Denise Hay. I don't see her in the room, but is she coming?
I'm not sure. I sent her an email in regards to the meeting this morning at 9 o'clock.
Okay, all right. First delegate is for invocation.
Heavenly Father, we thank you today for another day, and thank you for the Brunswick Housing Authority in Brunswick, Georgia, Lord. We thank you for all the leadership, staff, our residents, and Lord, I pray that we accomplish what we have come to accomplish today. In your wonderful name I pray, amen.
Amen. Everyone, turn their phones down or put them on vibrate so they won't go off during the meeting. And just since this is our first meeting, for those who are listening online or whatever, I just want to give you an update on the upcoming Board of Commissioners meetings. We have 2 meetings per month now, a work session meeting like the one we're at this morning. It's always going to be the second Wednesday of the month at 9 a.m. And our monthly meetings will be on the 4th Monday of each month at 6 p.m. Right now, both of them will still be at the central office here. During our work session meetings, we will not have any public comments. You'll just watch how we go through and discuss the situations that we're going to have in our work session meetings. However, our monthly meetings, there will be 2 public comments. Sign up no later than 5 p.m. If you're a staff member here, sign up, get in contact with Ms. Curry. We're only going to have 2 comment periods, 2 people to do comment time, and they're each for 3 minutes.
I think the staff requested 4 o'clock to help them.
But if they're here and she here, they can contact.
Well, if that's something that for them, I don't think it would matter to us.
Okay.
Since they're handling it.
Okay. And that's all about our upcoming meetings. Any questions? All right. And so our first delegate will be Denise Hayes, but she's not here.
Could we get a report from Commissioner Dickerson on the resident council meeting? Since she's not here right now.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have one, Mr. Jackson?
No,
You don't attend them?
I wasn't invited.
I do apologize. I have the notes in my other book. I don't have them in this one, but
Just a summary.
I do remember most of it. The key things was their concern was and wanted to have clarity on the changes of the meetings, which we made clear of it just a few minutes ago or seconds ago. And one of the concerns also was the trash on the grounds. They were really concerned about the trash. So we talked about
it being
solutions.
picked up or them,
About it being
we don't
picked
find them anymore for that, right?
No. For being picked up, that was one of their concerns, trash on the grounds, and we discussed solutions on how to work together as a community to ensure that the trash be picked up. So President Hayes was definitely solution oriented, and I like that. She just didn't accept the complaining. They also suggested that the communities work together in picking up the trash. And also, a resident had brought to us and asked if we can have a garden to produce.
Is that LaShonda?
Yes, I believe that was her. No, was that LaShonda?
LaShonda Huff?
Yes, Huff. Yeah, Ms. Huff. To produce vegetables for the community, more of a healthy eating. So that was basically what I was asked and talked to about. That I can remember right off hand, but I can remember that.
I think that was a good summary. And I'll just note that on the meeting change, staff also put that on the website, so that's all posted on the other issue they asked about was fire extinguishers.
Yes, that's that. There you go.
Yes. Where are we at with the fire extinguishers?
We need some guidance from that.
Is that something that you want to look into?
You need some guidance. Yeah, we need to decide what it is. suggested to staff about that. I mean, I suggested that if I think if I remember right in the email, we could get ones
That was self-disposal.
yeah,
Right, that didn't need any service.
The disposable ones, you don't have to be serviced yearly.
Right.
They still inspectable. If you install them in the apartment, it's still inspectable. So if you get one that somebody goes and they discharge it and they don't report or anything like that, it's another through the fix and it probably cause you a failure. And that's why people don't. That's why housing authorities don't put it in cheap units, really, simply because of that. You can fail. And with the new standards that's coming along with Inspire, something like that could fail you again. It's something that you really didn't know.
right.
And is that the case? Even if I understand correctly, that's the case. Even when it's not mandated that there's a fire extinguisher, if we just voluntarily put them in there,
Even if you don't own the fire extinguisher, if the resident owns the fire extinguisher, you're still responsible for it.
But
that's wild.
well, my concern is the safety of the family in the apartment. So I'm not so much worried about that. We have to deal with her on losing points or whatever. But if we go through due diligence and inspect it, but I would hate to have a fire that the extinguisher could have prevented and somebody in the house get injured, even if it's just smoke.
Have mercy on the fire.
Right. So to me, it's the safety of the families is worth the investment and the worrying about it if somebody is non-compliant on that.
And then in the email, I suggested to call maybe another housing authority, Jessup is the closest to us, see if they have any, see how they got them, if they use them.
I didn't see that anymore.
Yeah, but
Okay.
but I won't worry about that, Mr. Williams. My thing is we need to decide on based on the safety of the families if it's something we want to do.
It's something we need to do.
Right,
We
and
done had
especially
two
if we got units. Well, the only one I know about is Mercer. We had another.
Yeah, we had.
At Miss Marshall, her kitchen.
Yeah, we had 40 Brooklyn. I mean, but you talking about block victims. Most fires that start in 57 came right there. And most of Mercer is different because the way that particular set of buildings was built. Most of the buildings block. You got fires pretty much contained to where it is.
For me, I just think that it's we should have it because of safety, and then we can go through and make sure that people demonstrate that they know how to use it.
There's some funding that's available to do things like that and stop fires. There's fire suppression system. We've gone through the past couple of years and tried to receive some of that funding, and I don't know what the outcome on it was or what happened with it. I do have the paperwork from it over there. I don't have the response that came back from the applications for those grants.
Okay, but have you all checked what the cost would be?
It depends on what type of system you want to have.
Well, give us a couple of samples of the type of system that we should look at and to use, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so I did the numbers. If you did a single use fire extinguisher, class ABC fire extinguisher, and you only had, it would discharge. They discharge for like 8 seconds. They're real small, and they for single use small fire, real quick put something down. They run about $25 a piece. So in order to install them in all of the units, that it was initially the cost of like $15,000. And then if you installed ones that needed to be inspected, that were not disposable, they started out at around $59 a piece. And those would have to be inspected every year. So initially, it would be $30,000 to install them, and then another $15,000 per year to have them all inspected. We have new tags and everything put on.
Don't some of the units already have fire extinguishers?
No, sir, unless the tenant owns them.
Okay. My mistake.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a nominal amount for the safety of the family to me. Do we need a motion on that bid, or just direction to the staff?
Maybe at this point to direct staff to look into options and come back with recommendations and options for the board to consider.
You have already done, I thought that's what you said that. You've already looked at the options. Yeah, you've already looked at the options. And you're talking about the single use was the initial just $15,000 to install. $25.
$15,000. They're disposable, so they don't have to be inspected. They last. You would have, and that you have to replace those every 12 years, depending on what the manufacturing tag says. And,
Or sooner.
or so if
And
somebody
we could-
uses it.
Right, or we can decide to just to make sure that they're, to replace them maybe in 5 years. But we're talking about the cost of $15,000, which is what I suggested is instead of doing once you have to inspect that.
How often do the single-use ones expire? Isn't it like every 2 or 3 years?
12.
Yeah, he said 12, Clement.
12. Unless you use them, they have to stay fully charged. They have to be fully charged. If they discharge at all, then they no good.
That's for the single use?
Yes, they're disposable.
Okay, all right.
And most of the tags on them make them good for 12 years if you don't use them.
So, we are done. So, you were saying now we can make a motion? What?
You could make a motion to direct staff to procure those if you wanted to do that. Are there any funding concerns you have, Ms. Carroll?
I move that we procure single-use fire extinguishers to be installed in each unit.
Next question, how many?
Well, that's for you to tell us, the staff.
How many per unit? One upstairs, one
Yeah,
downstairs, one on every level.
Just one downstairs with a kitchen
In the
area.
kitchen, underneath
Right.
the sink.
Yeah.
Do I need a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion is carried to get fire extinguishers, one for each unit. That vote is
Madam Chair, let me ask a question about the trash pickup. So that was a concern. What, how's that handled normally?
Okay, so we have one ground guy right now, and we have 6 maintenance right now. And we're also going through inspections and repairs from inspections. So in the mornings, since we can't go into the units until 9, have maintenance go with the one ground guy and have them pick up trash in the community. And yesterday was McIntyre Court, the I Street side. That's always one of the hero spots. And this morning I had them in Hopkins. Last week, all of them was on top of telling them what community would help them out in until 9 when we can go into units. But after inspections, when we put out notices for inspections, we get a lot of work orders. We get tons of work orders. So those guys, I keep them busy all day. And then one ground guy is supposed to be out picking up the trash in the community. We pick it up and it'll be right back. Understand that. But that's how we handle it.
Could we, and Commissioner Dickerson, since you are at the meeting with them, could we talk with the residents council to put together a cleanup day to kind of initiate this in partnership with Keep Brunswick Golden Hours beautiful for. Well, let's just keep it simple. To work with the tenant council, and they can reach out to whatever partners they want to. Could be the MPAs or whoever, for a massive cleanup day. But then also, can we hire a part-time resident from each unit? Is that permissible for trash pickup? Maybe a retired person, somebody who's not working.
So that ain't
Because it sounds like you don't have enough staff to
No,
do this.
there's 2 grounds positions in the budget. It's just a matter of actually getting people.
can't feel it.
Finding somebody to do it.
No, they had another one, and he just
So with three grounds people, you think we could kind of keep them busy enough throughout the day to keep things up better? You're never going to stop it because somebody's always dropping something. Until you change the culture, but right now we're just trying to do better.
And I'm not even gonna tell you, I don't think it would take 3. It's 2.
Just another person.
Just another person. See that one person out there walking around picking up that trash out there, and
Right.
I've done it. When we didn't have grounds, I'd spend full days out there picking up trash. But I mean, 2, you get 2 of them, and
So if we look at
very good.
trying to find another person, and if Commissioner Dickerson can get with the tenants, so that we can begin to create, as you said, President Hayes has already talked to them about being part of the solution, to mount this maybe either quarterly or twice a year kind of thing, and to see if we need to have more, I don't know, do we have trash cans like the city have throughout the city?
We do. We installed them probably like a year and a half ago in the areas where you would always find the most trash at, which is both corners of Glenville on that side, from the school to this corner on Albany Street to MLK. And in the middle of Glenville, it was I Street. They took the trash can from I Street. And there's some in the middle of Brooklyn Homes. And I think the resident, I don't want. I know that's back.
Right.
I think they already have a pickup day established, and I think it's Fridays. I think they do at Brooklyn Homes.
Pickup day for the trash or just?
For trash and Brooklyn Homes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, it should be
Friday.
mentioned that they established that culture, so this, got to establish it within all of them.
Yeah, try to talk with them and see, but I mentioned the Keep Golden Hours Beautiful because they'll provide trash bags and things for free.
Right.
And then they can bring in tons of other volunteers to help out.
Can you
And
give me her information again?
Who?
Leah
Leah,
King.
yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I know that.
Yeah, I'm happy to facilitate anything between the resident council and people. That was beautiful.
Yeah, because Clement, you're on the board, right?
Commissioner, I'm the chairman of the board.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
And I've already brought this up to Leah a couple times, and she's really excited about the opportunity, and I think has some ideas. And Keep Going House Beautiful also has, we historically get some grants for community gardens and community orchards that I think could be a help to the residents who want to garden as well. If that's something that's even possible on our property.
I think it is. And I have a meeting at 11:30 after this meeting with the County Extension Service Master Gardeners Program. And so I've been talking with LaShonda about kind of a training process to do this, because we have some raised beds at Risley. And she participated in the our health fair in July. But Matthew Rayford, who is a experienced farmer, chef person, but the county's Master Gardeners Program want to help out, and they're willing to help train. And I talked to them about possibly working. And this is before I knew I was going to serve on the authority, the commission. But talk with them about establishing some 4-H chapters throughout the housing authority with some of the young people to help out with not just the food gardens, but maybe flowers and other things that beautify.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
That sounds good. Okay. Are we moving on to the next thing? Is that all, Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next up is, Whispering Oaks update. We have Mr. Robinson.
Is there a way to see the folks that are on the?
There he is. He's at the
Yes,
top.
thank you all. Hope all is well with everyone. I don't know if we need Adam or Ben to talk first, but I can start off just giving a description of who I am for those members that are new to the board. My name is Paul Robinson. I work for Superintendent Solution Partners. We specialize in working with housing authorities as they want to convert under what's called the HUD Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. We were one of the first companies to close a deal in 2015 with the RAD program in the state of Georgia. And since that time, I've been involved with 10 RAD deals with RAD closings. And so what we do is we just go around and offer these services to housing authorities that are interested in converting to RAD. And for those that don't know, Rental Assistance Demonstration Program came around in 2012. Initially, there were 60,000 units available for conversion throughout the country. Now there's 500,000 units available, and we believe that probably in the next half a year or so that there will be 1.2 million public housing units available. And you might want to ask why RAD came about, and it really came about to kind of solve the problem that we've had throughout the demonstration. In terms of deferred maintenance that's associated with public housing. It's a $25 billion backlog. That backlog has probably exploded to about 50 billion now. Just as each year deferred maintenance goes on, it just accumulates more and more costs that needs to be addressed. So the administration at the time basically said we need to create a format for private developers to partner with housing authorities that can bring extra equity to deals as well as debt to deals. Housing authorities traditionally could not put debt on deals, but then there were some special carve-outs. You might have heard of Choice Neighborhood, and you might have heard of Oak Cliffs deals in the past. These are large deals that were mainly done in major urban areas. But RAD wanted to get out to all of the smaller housing authorities and allow them the opportunity. So this whole concept of putting debt on a property, I know most people look at debt as bad, but in the affordable housing industry, we look at debt as good, as a leveraging tool to renovate and either build new construction of units. So that's just a little bit of background about RAD and myself. And then, talking to Adam and Ben, they wanted to kind of raise the question about Whispering Oaks. And I had a conversation with them maybe a week ago. And I just came up and jotted down some notes that I think the Brunswick Housing Authority should consider in going forward with Whispering Oaks. And let me just say this, Whispering Oaks is a tax credit development, and it's out of the compliance period. I think Adam put together a little legal ownership and management considerations. sheet that he handed out. And so just keeping that in mind, those type of deals that have gone through the 15-year compliance period, and now those deals are really, I think, situated well for what we call re-syndication. And what that means is basically going back into the Department of Community Affairs, applying for either 4% or 9% credits, and then doing a massive, gut rehabilitation of the units. And that is a competitive process in which you receive tax credits to do that. So that's why they call it a re-syndication of the development. And what we're going to begin to see in the state of Georgia and as well as across the country is the tax credit program came around in 1986. So if you add 15 years to that, then you're talking about 2001. A lot of 15-year properties are going to be, I would say, candidates for re-syndication. So you can just imagine now, there was not so many deals done in 1986 since the program just came around. But, probably in 1989, 1990, deals started getting done. So if you add 15 years on that, you begin to see what's going to be rolling off as syndication. So this is not unusual to try to reposition Whispering Oaks. But what I'll do is I'll just leave it and just make sure Adam or Ben doesn't want to talk about anything, and then I can jump right into some of the suggestions that we think should be done by the Brunswick Housing Authority to kind of I would say, do an emergency triage on Whispering Oaks.
So I'll sort of the impetus for putting this on the work session is issues Ms. Dyer's had with the management company not paying bills. And so it's because, Adam and I can talk about the ownership. If you remember back, it used to be Dartmoor, Gordon Armstrong. So these were, as I understood it, housing that was built for the folks that built the Liberty ships in World War II. So not great housing stock. So did a tax credit deal, built Whispering Oaks, so that old housing stock replaced with nice apartments, so better housing stock. The Housing Authority contributed the land. The issue now is we own the property 100%. We have a management company who doesn't appear to be managing the property well, collecting the rents, resulting in the Housing Authorities had to put money back into the property. And so maybe the first, if Ms. Dyer wants to talk a little bit about the issues with the management company, the cash flow, and the loans from the Housing Authority to Whispering Oaks, and then we can maybe at that point talk some about some of the ideas for solutions that Paul might have.
Yeah, since I've been here, well, we've changed management companies, and I'll talk about that in a second, but Whispering Oaks has always been on the verge of having no cash for a long time. They're just very cash strapped. It's getting worse now, and I think a lot of that has to do with COVID, with people not, being able to stay in their apartments and not pay their rent or whatever, so, because they do have a lot of tenant accounts receivables right now. So in the past, we have given Whispering Oaks money, we have loaned Whispering Oaks money, different things, we have funded them. Right now, they have outstanding payables. One vendor has filed a lien against Whispering Oaks, but they have outstanding payables of about $100,000. And one of those is a bill, Ms. Bailey, you probably remember the form you signed for the tax return preparation for this, for 2022. Well, the firm can't start the tax return until the bill from last year is paid. They have not paid the bill from last year. Which leads me to talk about the management company. About, I think it was around 2019, the original management company we had informed us that they were dropping their smaller clients, which Whispering Oaks is a smaller property. And that, so Angie put out an RFP, got very little response. There just weren't, we had to send the audit reports and the financials for Whispering Oaks to them as part of the RFP. People just weren't really interested in it because they, it's right there in front of their face what, the condition of the properties and the finances. So we got one response basically, and it was Royal American. And, you know, we've had issues with them, but we didn't have anybody in-house to do it. We didn't have anybody who was DCA certified or whatever to manage it, so we had to use a management company, so we had to go with them. But another one of the vendors that we owe money to is the staffing agency. We didn't even know, because there's not, and I'm missing part of this because I don't know after Angie left what kind of communication there was with, because normally all the communication would go from like property manager to the executive director. So I don't know what happened in the meantime, but they instead of hiring somebody, they were using a management, you know, a staffing agency
Like
to
a
pay their
temporary
property,
service.
yeah, their property manager and their maintenance. And and then they hired them on in November, but the bills to the staffing agency are still outstanding. So it's a mess, but I don't see a way out of Royal American right now unless we can get something going with, we have the employee here who is, I believe, I've been told is certified, you know, has taken the course to be able to do to be the manager, property manager at Whispering Oaks, but from what I was told, she would have to mentor under somebody else who had the experience for a while, and I don't know where that was in the process either, in the talks.
Who was the employee?
Cindy, she's a property manager at AMP1, Cindy Davis.
Oh, okay.
Do you have the amounts of the outstanding balances for the staffing agency? Because you mentioned $100,000.
Yeah, staffing agency is, hang on, it's $30,000 of it.
What other, I mean, can you compile it and give
Yeah,
us?
I've got the whole
what's the-
listing
yeah.
right here.
What's the total amount?
Right,
103,820.
$103,000. And what else?
103,820. There's a landscape, these are the vendors who have called and complained.
Right.
A landscape company, they're owed $10,000. Bone Dry Roofing is owed $6,800. Cone Resnick is the CPA firm, they're doing the tax returns, they're owed $3,400. Those are the largest balances in there.
And that's what equal up to the 103? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's others in there.
So we loaned Whispering Oaks $250,000 to repair 2 apartments. One that didn't pass inspection.
That never happened because I think one of those people, they moved out or something, or
One person.
So we never transferred that money. Okay. All right.
and that was, I think it was 25,000. 25,000.
And they never requested it.
Yeah, they never requested any, so I don't really know what happened with that. I think that person moved out.
So, to be clear for me, there are 103,820 owed out to vendors who have performed and just never got paid. Right. The current property management, do they have a person over there?
Yes.
They have a
Well, as far as, they said that the temp service, that they hired the temp who was filling the property management, you know, the property manager position and the maintenance position. So that was what they were paying the temp service on, and she said they were hired on in November. Stephanie Jones did. That's the Royal American property manager.
Stephanie Jones, okay. So there's supposed to be some staff over there, manager and a facility maintenance person. Okay, all right. Okay, I think Paul said that you all had some possible solutions.
Yeah, just hearing that, I just wanted to say one thing to kind of give the Brunswick Housing Authority overall context. When we do our RAD conversions with housing authorities, one of the things that we do is build up the capacity of the housing authority to do property management. And that's a process, you know. And so there's going to be some suggestions in here in terms of how you all can do that. But we believe that housing authorities can run low-income housing tax credit compliant deals just as good as affordable housing developers. And you're probably in the marketplace, you're going to hear, well, no, they can't because they don't know compliance. But it's been my experience that some housing authorities run their properties in terms of physical maintenance and cleanups and things like that better than affordable housing developers. So the day-to-day is not the big issue. The big issue is the compliance side of it, because you usually have an investor. In this case, you don't, because you're the only owner of the property, but you usually have an investor that's really wanting to make sure that the tax credits flow. And so that's the compliance side of things that really needs to be beefed up. But we've been working with investors as well as with DCA to allow housing authorities to take over the property management if they start utilizing low-income housing tax credits. So I wanted to say that that's something that we're very familiar with, and actually we give training courses on that with other housing authorities that have either gone through the RAD process, thinking about going through the RAD process, or are in the middle of the process right now to really build up their capacity to do that kind of work. So I want the Brunswick Housing Authority to understand that it can be done, and it's a path for housing authorities now to manage properties that are utilizing low-income housing tax credits. And then the other thing is, there's some stuff that I think Brunswick eventually needs to follow up on, and the person that I'm recommending to do kind of an owner's rep, he would know more about that. But because of COVID, there was a lot of affordable housing developments where rents weren't collected. And DCA, I thought, had a program for rental support program to fill in gaps where some of the tenants weren't required to pay during a particular time. And so maybe some of that money can be funded back to Brunswick Housing Authority through this DCA program. But so that's something that I think needs to be researched and kind of brought to the attention of DCA. So other than that, I just think that what you all have is not atypical in terms of properties that have been around for a long time, and then the management company just drops the ball. The person that I'm recommending has done this before in terms of looking at rural America, and he says he's had no problem with getting information out of them. But at one point, I was trying to get information out of them, and it was very, very difficult. So it led me to believe that they didn't have the proper people at the site, or there was just a lack of attention going on. So the first thing is, and I think what you all have done so far is kind of quantify the cost, which is $103,000 to get caught up with past bills. But I think you also need to get a understanding of what is the monthly contribution that the Bessemer Housing Authority needs to make sure that this deal at least runs at break even. Because the only other entity that I think is owed any money is the Brunswick Housing Authority, in which they have loans outstanding to Whispering Oaks. And so if you just look at the operating expenses and what would be the budget amount on a monthly basis to stop the bleeding at that property, okay? So you've got your budget of $103,000 to pick up past bills, and then you also need to understand what your monthly cost is to make sure that the operations is running efficiently. And then the third thing is just to digest the budget that I sent over from this owner's rep, which is $3,000 retainer, and I think he's being charged out at $200 an hour. So once that budget is contemplated and reviewed and modified any way you all want, then I think you all can have a vote on that to literally just stop the bleeding at the property, and then to get a handle on hiring somebody to assist you all with digging deeper into what's taking place. So we look at that as, in the notes that we provided to you all, as the stage one, just quantifying the cost that the Housing Authority would have to participate in to stabilize Whispering Oaks financially. The second thing is, just reviewing the information that we sent over in terms of the property management. And you can review that information. I've been working with this gentleman because in our own company, I wanted to kind of hire him to do asset management review of other deals that we work on. And so I have a lot of confidence that he would be able to do this work. That's why I recommended him. If you all think that it should go out to RFQ status or RFP status, that's the discussion that the Housing Authority would have to have internally. And I can provide some other people that might be interested in working in the Brunswick area with Whispering Oaks. But I think that's the second stage, is really kind of hiring an owner's rep to represent the Housing Authority's interest as it deals with Whispering Oaks. And what I would say is that property manager that's at AMP1 that has some experience literally work hand in hand with any owner's rep that you set up, because it's a chance to learn. And I'm going to say this, unfortunately, sometimes the best cases to learn are what we consider to be workout deals. And Whispering Oaks is a workout deal because it's a troubled asset. So by learning what the owner's rep is doing, that person that's at AMP1 can build up their experience and knowledge at a quick basis. The other thing is the owner's rep that I have also understands that DCA understands that there's a lot of troubled developments out there, partly because of COVID that took place. Rent collection was just so hard to take place during COVID. And so DCA is willing to work with any expiring tax credit deal or current tax credit deal in their portfolio to make sure that they assist a housing authority or any other property owner. So I think that's something that the owner's rep and Brunswick Housing Authority could have a conversation with DCA to see if they can get some help in that way. But I think the owner's rep would have to quantify all that information so that DCA can digest it and understand exactly what the problem is. And therefore DCA can then say, here's how we can help. So that would be, I would think, stage 2. Stage 3 is something that we constantly do, that's the property management and the building of the capacity of the Housing Authority to do property management. So I would suggest that the Housing Authority identify people within their staff that are interested in property management, have the willingness to want to do this, and you all can vet that internally out, and then start them on a program to get certified with low-income housing tax credits. And there's so many companies that give those certifications out there, so we can make recommendations for that. Zephyr Company is one. I've got a housing authority in Northwest Georgia Housing Authority that's literally doing property management training next week, and they're going to have 12 to 13 housing authorities up there, and it's going to be a certified program. We're going to be sponsoring non-certified programs to help people understand how to manage low-income housing tax credits development. So there's a lot of things that the Housing Authority can do right now in terms of their own internal staff and getting ramped up to understand how to utilize tax credits. And I want to say, eventually, every housing authority is going to have to use what we consider to be the RAD conversion or to go to tax credits. HUD is pushing all housing authorities to go RAD just because it saved the government anywhere between $8 and $9 billion so far. So this is a little bit forward thinking that you all can prepare now, your staff, to be able to do management once you all convert to RAD. And Whispering Oaks would be a great kind of an experiment for the Housing Authority to get its feet wet in doing that. The third thing is, whatever the owner's rep does for the Housing Authority in terms of documenting the problems, coming up with solutions, and then even kind of resolving some of the problems, I think will be very, very good, because then the property can be stabilized, and hopefully it will be stabilized to a point where the Housing Authority does not have to foot the bill on a monthly basis to stabilize the property. And so the combination of the management now being tightened up at Whispering Oaks, and then getting prepared to re-syndicate the development. Now, the re-syndication part is where the Housing Authority can start doing a lot of due diligence on the site right now, because DCA literally has 2 what we consider to be applications right now, and this is just a work in progress, and last year was the first year they did a 2-tier application. One application is for 9% credits, and that's done in May. The other application is for 4% credits, and that's done either in October or November. Last year it was done in October. So the housing authority could literally, if they can really get an understanding of what's going on with Whispering Oaks and get data from Whispering Oaks, could possibly make an application in October of this year. What does that mean? That means that everything will be recapitalized if you're successful in getting that funded by DCA. Unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, they moved the 4% to a competitive process just like the 9%. So you would be competing against the whole state about who gets funded. Last year, there were 73 applications and they only funded 23 bond deals. So you can see that the competition is pretty hard. In the 9% round, you might have 100 applications and they only fund 30 deals. So you just know what you're up against. But the good thing is DCA basically says they're gonna fund deals by regions. And Brunswick is in a region where you don't have a lot of deals going in. You might have some going in from Savannah that you gotta compete with, but it's nothing like the city of Atlanta, where 18 of those deals that got funded were from the city of Atlanta. So that competition up there, because of that region, is much more competitive than the Brunswick region right now. So anyway, by getting prepared, the asset owner representative will begin to understand the rent potential, how to reduce expenses to the development and streamline those expenses. We'll understand the structure of what's already over there. One of the things that I had an issue with is I could not really get a hold of how many market rate units are over there, how much project-based rental assistance is over there, how much it was just really just affordable housing and tax credit rents. And so the owner's rep would be able to really define that adequately and let us know exactly what's going on there. Because in order to put a deal together, you really need to know the rent structure. And the beautiful thing about what happens with Brunswick Housing Authority, because you're a voucher agency, if there's any gaps in the rents, then you could probably fulfill those with the vouchers that you already have. So that's the beautiful thing about a turnaround dealing with Whispering Oaks. You've got tools within your toolbox that I think can assist that property greatly. And then there's other things, in terms of the physical maintenance. I heard somebody mention maybe they failed an inspection. But that's the other thing that the owner's rep would be aware of. And then we can galvanize the physical maintenance crew to make sure that things are taken care of appropriately and nailed down. Even though I know it's not the Brunswick Housing Authority's role because you have a property management, I think from the physical maintenance side, instead of putting costs out there, that's something that you might be able to factor in along with the other work that the Brunswick Housing Authority is doing to maintain their current units. And then also to get prepared there's a lot of due diligence. Like in order to put a tax credit deal in, there's an environmental study that needs to be done, there's an appraisal, there's physical needs assessment. The market study is just done, but if you got 100% project-based rental assistance, you're not really worried about a market study. And then there's things like the Housing Authority and Adam and Ben can do in terms of title review and site ownership, making sure that the title is clean and things like that. So that's it in a nutshell. I did have one other thing that, let's just say hypothetical, the owner's rep that you hire has a problem in getting information from Royal American. Now, the person that I talked to, Paul Ponte, basically believed that he would not have any problem getting information from Royal American, but I always think it's important to plan for what-if scenarios. He basically said then the Housing Authority can hire him as an internal part of the Housing Authority to be the owner's rep, and because you are the owner, that would give him the right to get that information from them. And then the third thing is to just outright replace Royal America, and he would be willing to step in. But as Adam put down and Ben put down in their notes, I think the best strategy is for somebody to go in there, find out where all, what's going wrong with the property before somebody actually takes it over. Because what you do, really, I think what you want to do, and I'll defer to Adam and Ben on the legal side, you want to make sure that Royal American still is held accountable for anything that they did wrong. And you don't want somebody to come in and take over and then Royal American leaves and then trying to track them down and then you get a dispute of who did what when. So I just think it's better to make sure that Royal American is still liable for all the things that they possibly done wrong if you wanted to pursue that from a legal perspective. So that's it in a nutshell, and then I can take any questions, or comments and see if I can provide more clarity to what I just presented.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention one thing, because I know if it goes back into re-syndication and all that will take a little while. There is a more urgent issue over there, and that is the insurance. I know Miss Bailey was here, I'm not sure about Mr. Dickerson, but the roofs at Whispering Oaks, our insurance company has been harping on us to replace the roofs for quite a while. And going back a couple of years or 3 years, we had some quotes on replacing the roofs. So this is not a new issue to us, it's been out there, just nothing ever happened with it for whatever reason. This year, and the insurance company, they kept telling us, we're not gonna renew your insurance, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this year they did renew it, but with a note saying, because you have not replaced these roofs or repaired the roofs, but they really do need to be replaced, from what I've been told, our insurance deductible is up to $50,000 per occurrence because of the condition of the roofs. So, whether or not the roofs get replaced as part of the rehab or earlier, it's just depending on, how the board feels about the deductible amount at the moment. But the insurance company did say, I highly recommend that you do this. I don't know if they are willing to do a $50,000 deductible next year. I don't know. And that, I think it runs on a calendar year basis.
I remember that because we were trying to decide whether we get the slab or the metal.
Right. Well, first Royal American put out an RFP and they got put out a bid and they got several responses, and then none of those were acceptable. So then John Gallego puts one out himself. He gets one response back, and after that happened, I don't really know what happened after that.
Yeah, let me just say something else. I've been doing development in the state of Georgia for since 2007, so that's 18 years. And so one of the things is about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a situation where there was a lot of hurricanes coming through that part of the country, and the government, DCA, allocated CDBG money for any deal in that area that might need assistance. And somehow it got bogged down in terms of not getting out the door. And I don't know if DCA still has that money, but one of the things that we do fairly well at is going after money that is allocated by the state, whether it's ARPA money, whether it's CDBG money, and literally trying to employ that in some of the housing authorities that we work with. And one of the things that I talk to housing authorities all the time is the housing authorities that's the most organized, all right, will probably get the money if they apply for it. But there has to be a story told in terms of how you plan on repositioning and what you are doing as a governing body to make sure that the residents' health and safety needs are being met. So anyway, that's part of what we do also, is reposition the housing authority in terms of rebranding the housing authority so that they can go after these extra funds. And so there might be an avenue there in terms of getting money, but I just think that, like was mentioned in terms of giving you a timeline for if you are successful with a 4% deal, let's say hypothetically, we put in a 4% application in October. DCA won't know until January or February which deals get funded. Then it will take another 6 or 7 months to put in applications again. And then it takes, I would say 6 or 7 months for a development to close. So you're really talking about 1.5 to 2 years out in terms of the resyndication process. But the resyndication process could do several things. It could make sure that the Brunswick Housing Authority has property that has been recapitalized and taken care of all the deferred maintenance. In my deals, I have not worked on a deal that's less than $80,000 per unit, our construction costs in the deal. And so the deal I'm doing right now in Camilla, we're doing $130,000 per unit, and that's a rehab development. I know you say, wow, that's a lot of money. But when you're talking about properties that have been 50 and 60 years old, and with construction costs going up, it's relative when you're talking about a lot of money. So anyway, I just wanted to say that Whispering Oaks, from what I saw, the building, I love it because it's brick by and large, and so I think the bones are real good, but the roof might need repair. But the kind of work that we do when we're talking about rehab is the entire rehaul of the HVAC system, all the floors and carpeting, all the kitchen finishes, and in some cases we're able to upgrade those to almost market rate condition, floors, windows, and doors, and then laterals. If there's any deterioration of the laterals to the mains, the sewer and water mains, those are typical things that we automatically do. And then people that know me, they know that I always ask for the housing authority's wish list, not their needs list. And then it's our job to go out and see if we can find extra money to fulfill the wish list if it's not money just within the low-income housing tax credit space. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there because I do hear you about the roofs and they probably do need to be addressed. But if there's another hurricane coming through or anything like that, God forbid, that might, I don't know if the insurance company would take that. But again, paying a deductible of $50,000, and I don't know how much roofs cost right now, but I can probably look that up. You can kind of weigh the cost benefit of making a claim and getting the roofs repaired versus paying outright for getting the roofs
Ms.
repaired.
Dyer, did you say we owe a roofing company now?
Yes.
In that 103?
Yes, Vine Drive Roofing.
All right. How much do we owe that?
I think it was,
Just for a repair or something?
yeah, just 3 separate invoices or 2 separate invoices, $6,800.
Yeah. So that we won't keep this meeting long. I think this is a good meeting for us to kind of get caught up, but there's still a number of things that I think we ought to look at. Whispering Oaks seems to be a crisis situation. Not only because of the physical structures and everything, and then we don't know what's going on with the rental collection. And I agree with Mr. Robinson about the DCA funding, because there shouldn't have been anybody, we shouldn't have had problems with collecting rent because DCA has got billions of dollars to pay for folk, and each person gets a certain amount of that money. And I forget, it's so many thousands of dollars if they're behind because of COVID. Pretty familiar with that, but the Homeless Coalition and other organizations, I sit on the board for the Community Action Agency. They're ones that help folk with their back rent, or if they're about to be the rapid rehousing program. The problem is DCA doesn't have enough people to process applications, and so they stopped taking applications, I think, at this time, but the money is there. The other program he mentioned about the CDBG is called CDBG DR, Disaster Relief. Brunswick was one of the 3 zip codes that got a large part of this funding. But they're run into a problem with DCA again, changing requirements, not processing things with folk who kind of got missed with the FEMA, and this is from Irma, from my understanding, Hurricane Irma's funding. So we need to have a meeting just about this, to be honest, because there are a number of other ways. I don't think we can wait 2 years to deal with this, to be honest with you. Now, I think there may be some other HUD programs, but there may be some other ways to look at partnering to make this happen, as far as financing. And there's another effort going on being led by the city to create a fund similar to what they have in Savannah, to deal with housing issues, a private fund. So I don't know how, that's just an idea right now, but there are other there's many ways to do a deal. I think that we need to help the staff kind of deal with some immediate situations, which we need to kind of talk about that in itself. I don't think we're gonna have enough time today to do that. But that's kind of where I'm at, Commissioner. And Mr. Williams, did you have something you wanted to say?
I wanted to ask Mr. Robertson a question real quick about something he said. Well, I heard him when he said it, and I understood what he was saying. And when he said about replacing the roofs at Whisper Oaks, you wanted to weigh the cost of replacing the roof and a $50,000 deductible. See which one made more sense. I'm certain if you don't even have to weigh that, you know which one made more sense in that situation is paying a $50,000 deductible and having to replace the roof. If it was all of them, but if you're only talking about one, you had a storm come through that affected one roof.
Yeah, again, for me, it's what's best for the families there. And I know we have to have a financial consideration with that, but the best thing for them and everybody would be to have the roof replaced. Because us paying a deductible doesn't safeguard their belongings if a storm comes through and the roof is not adequate to withstand it, and they're going to lose everything.
Multiple.
Right, and my concern would be then we may be liable if we didn't do everything to make sure that the structure was sound. And that's not even the political blowback, and you all may have that as a concern, but sitting as a District 5 commissioner, and this is my district, that would be a major concern, and I promise you the state and the federal politicians will not, they will be passing the blame directly here, and using all their power to make sure that we're held accountable. I really think we've got to figure out the roofing and other maintenance and the management of this, but we need a meeting just for that. I mean, unless there's something else. Clement, what you think?
Yeah, there's a lot to digest there, and Mr. Booker, I think you're exactly right. We have a lot of options that we need to kind of weigh, and time is of the essence. So that's always going to be a consideration. Just briefly on the insurance issue, what for the $50,000 deductible? How much are we paying in premiums a year on that? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't. I would have to, because I don't have access to their books, but I could go back and look through some old reports and get it. And it's $50,000 for wind. The regular damage, whatever it's called, is $10,000, but 50 is for wind, and that's what you'd be worried about on a hurricane. So.
Sure. So I guess to me, one of the main insurance analysis is, what do you need to do to get a lower deductible, and then how, if a higher deductible, how long would it take for the units to pay for themselves, or how long would it take for premiums to equal that $50,000 deductible? So kind of a reverse analysis in this situation, but my general thought is that if we replace the roofs, we can probably get a lower premium with a lower deductible, which would be a significant portion of the analysis there. Does that make sense? I kind of got a little sideways in my analysis there.
Mr. Roberson,
Yes,
how you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you for asking.
Good to see you.
Yes,
When you talk about the maintenance, since we'll be owning it, and you said we could save money, are you talking about not hiring an outside maintenance company, but the Brunswick Housing Authority will pick up the maintenance for Whispering Oaks?
Yeah, and you know what I actually would, you know, if it can be done internally, what you can do is still have the billing for the services that the Brunswick Housing Authority provides for Whispering Oak.
Okay,
And then eventually, once you syndicate the deal, then all those bills will be caught up. Okay, if that makes sense. Because you'll have a brand new bill, a brand new kind of like cash flow scenario. You'll have more than, I think, enough resources to catch up on costs of anything that was done by the maintenance of the Brunswick Housing Authority. But I think more importantly, it gives you an understanding of what's going on the fiscal side of it. You know, it's almost like you all have to do kind of like a triage in terms of just finding out everything that's going on. Because you might go over there and you know, just think that these, you know, what Royal American is reporting to you in terms of fiscal things that are wrong with it. But if you do an inspection yourself, you might find all kind of things that you're not aware of. But those things will be good for you to understand what's going on, because once you try to re-syndicate it, you'll exactly know what needs to be taken care of. And we'll probably be able to do a lot more than that, but it's just anytime you can get intelligence about the property that you own, it's just overall just a good position to be in. So that's why I was kind of recommending that if it's possible that the fiscal maintenance staff already there kind of pick up the physical maintenance side of what Royal American is doing, and you could literally get rid of at least what I see as the physical maintenance staff person at Whispering Oaks now. It sounds like they're not doing their job anyway. So instead of replacing Royal American outright, we kind of slowly replace them with the start off of the physical maintenance operations.
Something else to consider too, I remember some of the concerns was the sprinkler systems causing the tenants to lose their items as well. Am I correct when that was done? Sprinkler systems.
I remember one instance of that. Actually, as a matter of fact, that same year, the 2 sprinklers busted in the tank. It was sometime back in December.
it went off by itself.
Yeah, the plumbing for a person is what the maintenance personnel there told me.
You didn't say
no. That's what he told me.
Who's the developer on that Whispering Oaks, do you know?
construction.
Yeah, the construction people.
I don't know.
But it's 15 years old.
Yes.
But that's been remodeled.
Before my
Yeah.
times, I can't remember the name.
Ms. Dyer, you mentioned something about I don't know what you call it, like people still owe rent that they haven't paid, right? And but they're still living there, correct? Right.
As far as I know, yeah, I don't know the details of
right.
it, but as far as like the DCA thing with applying for funds, I think that Royal American has done like the Housing Authority did and, encouraged their tenants to apply for whatever, like in the Housing Authority's case, there weren't very, if I remember right, there weren't very many tenants who got the money from DCA because they didn't lose their job because of COVID. It had to be, the loss,
A stipulation of losing their job and not be able to pay.
But I know that Whispering Oaks got some money, and I can't say for sure that it was DCA because one of the vendors that I was talking to when they called and asked them about their bills, and they were saying, oh, well, she said that, they would be able to pay the bill next month because they thought some money was coming in for rent. And the way the conversation went, it made it sound like somebody had applied for some relief, or Whispering Oaks had applied for some relief, through those COVID funds. But I don't know if there's anybody other than DCA who does that. I don't really know. So I'm guessing that they did get some money.
Madam Chair, I would suggest we just table this for now and record.
So, yeah.
motion to loan the money
Yeah, if Ms. Dyer is saying we duly owe this money, then I think we need to go ahead and pay it.
Yeah. Give us a listing of what needs to be paid.
But I think she provided that. My thing is just that,
And,
if she's saying we owe it,
okay,
I'm not saying we don't. I just want to see the line item of what who we owe it to in the individual amounts.
luckily, not luckily, part of it is, Royal American's own payroll. Part of this balance, but, yeah, what we would do, because Whispering Oaks, for us falls under Georgia HAP, because that's where the ownership, everything is booked on our ledger, so this money would come out of Georgia HAP if we paid this on their, on their behalf or whatever, that's what it would be. But that's the listing, and that's as of a couple days ago. Yeah, well, hopefully, if we
yeah,
get.
I don't need to see the listing of the vendors and stuff. Any other commissioners need to see that? Madam Chair, do you entertain a motion?
I entertain a motion that we defer this meeting and that we pay.
No, let me make the motion for that.
What do you want to make a motion for?
Okay.
I make a motion first that we pay the outstanding balances on Whispering Oaks.
You should make the motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
That's what I was saying.
Oh, okay. I move to make a motion.
No, you don't make the motion, you entertain the motion.
I entertain a motion. Okay.
I move that we follow the staff, finance director's direction to pay the outstanding payables for Whispering Oaks of $103,820 as presented.
Second. The motion was that we pay the outstanding balance on Whispering Oaks of $103,820. And that motion was carried.
Ask for the vote.
Second.
It was second by,
Second by Dickinson, Commissioner Dickinson, and the motion was by Commissioner Wood.
ask for the vote.
And the vote was,
Ask us to vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
All right.
That vote carries.
What I'll do is just wire transfer the money from our Georgia HAP account to Whispering Oaks so that they can put it somewhere.
Okay.
Instructions on exactly what it's for.
And then,
You have to make a motion to the
no, we this is just kind of an update, but we'll set a date ASAP to make a decision about this. Really appreciate your input.
Yeah.
Is it Robertson? I've been calling you Mr. Robinson. Mr. Robertson?
I wish it was Robertson.
Okay, it's Robinson.
Is I'm a big fan of his, but it's Robinson, R-O-B-I.
Okay, I was corrected. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Paul Robertson was a historical icon,
Yeah.
very talented guy, and athlete. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I wish I had 20% of his talents.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for allowing us to present. And I just wanted to say one other thing, property management is not my expertise, but overall development is. And if you need to have Paul Ponte come in and make a special presentation to you all, he would have so much more information about how to work out something like this than I would.
All right. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
all have-
Right.
Depending on how much this is gonna cost, we should do an RFP for all this stuff.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
And the staff need these following approvals needed, right?
Yeah, these here right here. So, Ms. Dye, is it any other finance that you have to tell us about this morning?
Yeah. Just in general, Normally, I use the March year-to-date numbers to work on the budget for the next fiscal year. And I'm working on March right now, I'm just, with everything else going on, I'm a little bit behind, but, as part of that, one of the biggest parts that I need to know is staffing and salaries and positions and that kind of thing. So I can't really, and the budget, you know, the budget in the past, we've always had it approved at the May board meeting, but it's really not necessary as long as the board approves the budget prior to 6:30. We're good. So, you know, it doesn't have to be presented in May, it can, you know, happen later than that, so it's not like a serious time crunch right now. But what I need is like some guidance on staffing, that kind of thing. I have to build that into the budget, and that's like the first major part that goes into it, to start with. So I will need to have something like that to work with to prepare the budget.
So when you say staffing,
Yeah, like, okay, right now we're operating under an organizational chart that was put
Right.
together by somebody who's
Right.
no longer here, and so I don't know if that's the pleasure of everyone going forward, and so I just don't know.
ask Ms. Howe to give you a list of the employees and the staff we have right now.
Yeah, I've got that,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Has anybody been hired since Mr. Baker left?
Yeah, the people that were already approved in the,
I hear you, Ms. Dyer, so give us a moment to get that to you.
yeah, I'm not asking for it right now.
And I'm glad you
just
said
saying-
that we do have a little bit of extra time.
Yeah,
That- that-
because,
that-
you know, in general, just like, for instance, we've always had a site manager and assistant site manager, assistant site manager. Well, that was changed under the last organizational chart to have 6 site managers. Well, that's a difference. That's a big change for us. So, I mean, I just didn't know if anything was going to change as far as the organizational chart or whatever going forward. That's the kind of stuff that I'm going to need for the budget.
Well, probably because we're gonna have a new, executive director, but it may not be,
Change now.
major for it. And then can't we amend the budget?
Yeah.
As needed, so, but, thank you for the heads up. Cause if we're gonna do, executive session before, cause, we need to move on to these other
Yes,
things.
all right. So let's move on to the new business with approvals needed. The first one is the lawn maintenance bids received on March the 23rd with Director of Facilities, Ed Williams.
Alright. We did receive, well, we supposed to receive bids on March the 23rd. Up until that date, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 4 interested bidders, 4 people that contacted me to receive the documentation, the bid documents. When the bids closed at 2 o'clock on March 23rd, I only received 1 bid. And it was from the lawn maintenance company that we currently use, and their price changed about what I figured it would, what I figured their price would. My estimate was that the lawn maintenance contract would actually end up in somewhere around the $165 to $170,000 a year range. Theirs came in at $149.5, and I expected theirs to change about that much because their current contract was 3 years ago and it was at $125. It was at $125,000 a year. I expected because there was a change in the wage and Davis Bacon wage determinations, it went up from the time when they bid their original contract. I think minimum wage on federal projects was at like $12 or $11.20, something like that. And now it's up to $16.20 an hour. So I figured it would change because of that, and the adjustment for inflation over the last few years. I figured theirs would go up that much. But I expected the other bids to come in at around 160, 170. And I was thoroughly surprised that we only received this one. So in saying that, and it's binded. When I leave today, I'll cut it open and I'll send everybody a copy of all the documents that came from that. And I'll make sure you get them.
So-
And I'm not looking for approval on this.
Right, okay.
I'm just giving you an update on what happened with it.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Williams, is it for a 3-year period?
It's for a 3-year period. Doesn't mean that it has to be for a 3-year period, because the
Okay.
documents say that the contract is terminable by either party.
Right.
Since a 30-day notice. You can terminate the contract, but actually his contract doesn't even require notice. But
Okay.
no, it's not binding for the entire 3 years.
Okay.
It's-
Okay, well, we'll wait to hear.
Yeah, and what I was gonna say is that only receiving one bid. Currently, we on a month-to-month with this company. I mean, we could resolicit all over again. It's not like I don't have the documents already. We can resolicit again, and I can try some other avenues for advertisement, because I recently signed up with an e-procurement site that I can put those bids on and receive hopefully some more responses from that.
How is the maintenance company we have now? What do you think about the one we have now?
I honestly believe that we need stronger administration on that contract so that we receive a better result, a better product from that. And I've been back and forth with Mr. Chris about that.
Who is Chris?
That's the owner of the company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I just saw them when I was coming over there. I think they were in McIntyre.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, because we haven't been receiving good services
Yeah,
from them.
and that's why I say I would like to see what some numbers from some other companies
Right.
even would look like. And I've talked to Chris quite a few times about the administration on this contract and how it
Yeah.
if I'm administering, it's gonna be a whole lot different. You're probably not gonna like me, but I mean, you get paid, you don't have to like me.
Right.
That's good,
That's
that's what's needed though.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, we'll follow your directions, I think.
Yeah, I think right now, I would like to solicit at least one, personally, I would like to solicit one more time. I won't hate it, because it's gonna take another 30 days at minimum.
I'm definitely in agreement with that.
Yeah.
I've watched them just drive up on the properties and they just treat our properties. I mean,
Yeah,
if that was St. Simon's Island, they would not be doing that.
Yeah, I'd like to solicit
Watch it,
again.
man, so record.
Well, if I get hit for it, I get hit for it.
Yeah.
Then we're not gonna treat those properties any different from any other
Well, we
property.
I got
can,
you.
we want to look good, no matter what.
Hey, I'm with you.
Yeah, all right. So,
Okay.
I entertain a motion that we,
We need a motion. He's
You don't
not
need-
asking. He's
Okay.
not asking for approval.
all right, the next thing, so we're finished with that and you're gonna go out and throw out another thing.
I'm on receipt.
Another announcement, all right. The next thing is the agency plan for HUD submission due April the 13th. So,
Yeah, that was, we had the public hearing, and so generally, what we do after this is when the board officially approves it, and then there's several places that you need to sign,
okay, so can we just give them, nobody was here but me. So, well.
I mean, did you go over this at my first meeting?
I think so.
The plan?
Yeah, it's all been, it's presented first as a draft,
Mhm.
and then in a board meeting, and then, we go through the other steps.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we need to get it in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in 2 days. All right. Mr. Dickinson, do you have a copy of the new annual plan?
It was sent to me.
Because I think the
It was
only,
emailed, Ms. Curry emailed it,
Yes,
yesterday.
yes.
the only thing that was
yes.
added was the pet policy and the grievance procedures. Right. We have to change that because staff can't do the grievance procedures. We need outside people doing it. All right. So I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agency plan.
Clement, did you review this, get a chance to look at this?
I have.
Okay. Any
No.
concerns or?
I don't have any tremendous concerns with it. I think it's pretty good.
All right.
Nothing expected, from what I was thinking.
I offer a motion that we accept the plan as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Or if not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, we just made a motion to accept the agency plan as written and it's due by April the 13th.
Vice Chair, Commissioner Dobson, he called in as well.
Okay. All right. And that motion carries 3-0. All right, next thing on the list for approval is the vacancy rate solutions, new vacancy painting and cleaning contract consideration. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to the entire board's attention that those two vital contracts were terminated last year and never reestablished, and they are almost essential to keeping the time frame that HUD allots you to go from key turn in to keys out, which is general.
Do you have an RFP for these?
I haven't done it because there was nobody here to tell me that I can't do it.
Okay, so you need.
I need.
Do you mind just giving them a bit of background on what HUD's expectations are from move out to turn in the property, and then maybe the shift in philosophy last year and what you think we ought to do to maybe return to?
Okay, so what the time frame that HUD allots you from move out, what they call keys in, to lease up. So the time somebody moves out to the time you move somebody back in. 15 to 17 days. Once you go over that time frame, and I don't know the exact amount of time where you start losing funding for a unit after that. I don't know the exact time frame, but at some point that you stop losing funding on it. You start losing funding on that unit.
It also dings you on the points too, so it's if you haven't turned it, you lose money and you lose points, and so that's the impact on Brunswick Housing by not meeting the turnaround.
100%. And so last year, and not saying that it was wrong or anything like that, but the contracts for painting and cleaning made it where you could almost keep that average time frame. And the reason they did so was because you weren't paying by the hour to have the unit painted, cleaned, things like that, and you didn't have to constantly pay staff and benefits and all of that to have it done. So it allowed you to, there was a base rate charge to paint the unit, a base rate charge to clean the unit, no more, no less. So if you take longer, not only are we going to be on you and you have your people in there and you have to pay them, but I mean, you won't receive any more money from it. And a lot of housing authorities have gone to contracts for doing that, just so they can keep that time frame, and you're not constantly chasing people around trying to force them to stay doing it when it's your staff, because you're paying them out. And so a lot of housing authorities went to that. Well, in the previous administration, those contracts, they may not have been administered real great either, want to stand on top of contractors and things like that. But the previous administration didn't like what it saw when it came in, and it looked at the services that were being provided by those contractors. They terminated them, and it was decided that we would go to remodeling units, which was something totally different. And so those contracts weren't needed, and they were never reestablished.
So instead of just cleaning the units and repainting them as a way to, and maybe some minor repairs, so that we can get them move-in ready. And that would be based on HUD standards and our own local standards, of course. We went to totally remodeling the units.
Yes, sir.
All right, I got you. So what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is that we reestablish vacancy painting and cleaning contracts so that we can get back into that 17-day range. And I think the problem with that was, it would have been fine with the 6 or 7 units that we had then, but nobody foresaw the amount of move-outs that we have. People who just move out, who don't need service anymore, they just move out. And it caused the vacancy rate to get over there. Currently, we got 79 vacant units.
You got almost 80.
Almost 80 vacant units.
And another thing, those units that were to be remodeled were not taken offline at that time either, right?
They weren't.
And so what that means is like in the HUD system, it's not counting against you, right?
Right.
They're taking them offline because of whatever, like if you have a major
Right.
fire, those are offline, it's not gonna hurt you.
Right.
These aren't offline. So just warning, at the end of this fiscal year, our occupancy rate, which affects our score, which
Right.
determines our funding, is going to be lower than it's ever been since I've been here. And I think in this room. I've
So
been
we
here longer than anybody else.
we need to send out an announcement for a new painter and cleaner.
And while you have those units, you still have a waiting list too, right? I mean, so it's not like we
So-
don't have people that could use the
Right.
units.
What's the
with-
actual waiting list
Yes.
number? Because I think, Madam Chair, you confused me yesterday. You told me 589, but
No,
that
the
was the number.
589
That's
is
the
the
number of
units.
units.
It's the units.
Okay.
I don't know the actual.
We have any
list.
idea?
The
No.
lady who knows the
I
waiting
don't.
list number is probably sitting across the
We-
hall right
yeah.
there.
I like that on that monthly report, know how many vacancies and number on the waiting list.
But I guess the point is, you've got 70 empty units and you've got folks needing places to live,
Mhm.
and the glitch is we're not
That
meeting the
Yeah,
turnaround.
that,
Yeah.
Normally, we're at 95% occupancy or higher.
Yeah,
So
it's-
we're not now.
and it stays within compliance of time frame that HUD gives you, but that's almost the reason why you can't go and
So
rebuild.
do we need a motion to return back to what Mr. Williams is asking
I
for?
guess to direct Mr. Williams to put out for RFP for the painting and,
Normally it would be the executive director. I just go to them and say,
Right.
hey, this is what we need to do, and they would come here and do whatever, but we don't.
Right.
So,
So we need a motion or just direct him?
I think direction to put those out for RFPs, and then you'll bring back staff recommendations, we think we should go with A, B, and C to help us.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
That's
good.
That's it.
You're
That's all.
comfortable with that, that's what you're.
I know your job is hefty, but is there any way we can ensure that if we do get the same company or whoever we get, ensure that they're not doing subpar work?
100%.
Okay.
It's in administration of it.
And I'm,
Well,
See, historically, we didn't have a contract administrator, someone who that was pretty much all that they did. They had John, but he was doing management and maintenance. He was doing procurement, and he was doing the contract administration portion of it. And I don't know, between those three things, I mean, I do a lot of it now.
My thing is, you're gonna be, how do we choose these folk when they submit these proposals? Does the staff get together and then do they rate them?
Yes, in the solicitation documents, there's a page on there that tells you how the proposal will be graded.
Right.
And then the staff gets together and we look at how the proposal is great. We look at it and we score them by points. I identify my
And-
evaluation team.
And so my point is, to Commissioner Dickerson's concern, you know, if you have a past history with them, then somewhere on there, you should be able to grade them low because the performance wasn't up to standard. So that should eliminate us worrying about them, unless.
Like, I don't know if it was necessarily performance, it was like, I think it was under one of the contractors anyway. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a mutually agreed upon, unwritten thing that this is what your contract says, this is what we're gonna pay you. But yeah, you can do it this way and.
So crazy.
And that was by who, Ms. Dyer, that you think had that unwritten?
John Gallego, I mean, that.
The
I think
person you just
the-
mentioned.
the-
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
I
with
mean, just,
He's no longer with us?
No, that was with Angela's administration.
I mean, I'm
Okay.
not,
Yeah.
just because that's the way, it was consistent. This
Ma-
is what it said, this is the way it was done, and it was consistently done that way all the time.
Yeah.
Maintenance was an eyesore during that administration. No documentation, no nothing.
I think he gave the contract in question, and he gave a price to do the work based on what he was told, not on what was written into the contract. And when it came down to trying to administer the contract to what was written in the contract, which he was at the end of his contract anyway, he said, yeah, I can't do that for that price. And
Although
that's the difference.
All right, okay.
And so we'll go back to making sure they clean the place first before it's painted and no more painting over the dust and dirt and everything.
Yeah, well, preferably we won't have to, if we get the right company, we won't have to worry about it.
All right, so we don't have to make a motion on that. The last thing on the approvals needed is pest control contract extension or options.
That's just, okay, the pest control contract, it actually expired in January. She does have another year extension left on her contract, if she even wants to continue that. Pest control lady is pretty good.
You like, she does
She's
good?
pretty good, she does it good.
What company is it?
Mirtech,
Okay.
Mirtech, small woman-owned business.
All right.
And
Do-
as
do-
far as I've heard from people who've been here way longer than me, that she's probably the best one that has been around, even better than the big name companies, because she's smart. You call her, she come,
Okay.
she get it taken care of.
How long? So after her year extension, she has to
This is the
reapply?
last year on her contract.
But right now, you just need us to approve this option.
If the extension, as long as she's willing to do so.
All right. I make a motion that we approve the extension option for the pest control as presented. Do I need to name the company?
I think.
All right.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Make sure, Chester,
Just,
he's still on there?
Commissioner Dobson?
Okay.
Commissioner Dobson? Is your phone on mute?
This ain't no roots.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was trying to speak on several cases, but I didn't but I'm aware of everything that's going on. And I agree with the pest control being extended. Is this Ms. Martha?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I can vouch for Ms. Martha. She's very good, and she's very good. I love her. Just talking to staff yesterday about situations that people are having, determining the gap problems. It's a slow process going on. Can you tell me why the market took so long to get to insurance?
Recently, oh goodness, they are doing annual sprays right now. So I think they went from having like 60 units on the list to having like 175 within a month, and they doing retreats on that. And I only know this information because I have to include that in my monthly submission to her in our recovery plan.
Okay, that's why she's running behind.
Yes, sir.
Does she have any additional help, or is
She
she
does.
doing it by herself?
There was a young lady that was working with her, but I think that
Young lady. I
Yeah.
talked to her.
I think the issue was us having someone to accompany the young lady, because we can't let them go into the units by themselves. So
Right.
I remember them calling and saying they needed somebody else to escort the young lady. And actually,
Right, I recall her too, the young black girl. They called her together.
oh no. That she is actually an employee.
Situation.
Yeah, that's a housing employee. Miss Martha had another young lady that worked with her.
Oh, okay. This is something.
All right,
Okay.
all right. That motion was made, by Commissioner Booker and second by Commissioner Collins. And for us to keep Ms. Martha for the pest control merit tech. That was carried 4-0. That motion carries. All right. Who is next on the agenda is the board updates. The Job Plus revised budget.
Jamie is gonna speak on that. 'Cause that's mostly personnel. So those adjustments were made.
I don't know what adjustments needed to be made because we already had. And, HUD said they won't need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So who,
I don't know what the
who's supposed to be
adjustment
talking
is.
about that?
Jamie,
Is she not here?
she is here.
Can somebody get her?
She's coming.
Yeah. Good morning. Ms. Howard, do you have the Job Plus revised budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Is it in y'all's packet?
Yes.
You have it? Yes, I got it in front of me.
Mm-hmm. All right, tell us about that, please.
So the budget is set up from, Isaac is a gentleman who works with HUD to make sure that these grants, when they're put together, adhere to the obligated amounts that are set for certain items within that grant. So Ms. Farr has been working with him, Ms. Miller, Christina Miller with HUD, and Jessica have been all in these meetings going through these budgets. So each line item is what this grant has been set up and broken down for us with regards to this grant. And it's just each line item that we have to adhere to. So this is just for the first 6 months broken out on how those funds with that grant are disseminated. The next phase will go to another section per se or category on who we have to hire for this grant. Again, all the funding for personnel in this grant come from the grant. doesn't come from the housing authority finances at all. All those monies come through the grant.
So when do we have to implement this stuff?
So this due date for this one is as soon as we can, get HUD's official signature, which we're in the process of doing right now, then it goes through and gets implemented. So by the 14th, I believe, this one has to be submitted so they can say, okay, we see that this is how those funds are gonna get disseminated. And then HUD goes through and kind of does a check and balance with us throughout this just to ensure these line items stay accurate and in control. You can't draw down the money for anything outside of this. So it's not like you can say, oh, we want to change it, so next month we're gonna flip some numbers around. You can't do that. Once it's submitted, it's set in stone. You do not have the capability of altering those numbers.
And how do we come to set this budget the way it is again? I know you just said it.
Yeah, it's okay. So we have Zoom call meetings every month, sometimes twice a month, with a gentleman by the name of Isaac. He's like the grant manager representative from HUD. And they kind of help you. They're your guiding pointer, like your mentor as to how these line items need to be filled, where you pull. You can only pull so much money from the grant that's only allotted for personnel expenses. So anything other than that, you can't use it. You can't say, oh, I want to take the $100,000 more of this grant and put it towards personnel. You can't do that. It specifically tells you only this percent can be used for that. Only this percent can be used for case management services. And so it keeps it very specific. So he kind of helps guide us, because we haven't had this grant before, and how these numbers look, how much we have to obligate for each area.
So who came up, so did Mr. Isaac come up with this chart or the staff?
Yeah, they provide it. They
Okay.
provide it for us so we can kind of fill in the blanks on what our services are and what the grant is supposed to be providing to our residents.
Because I know on the original MOU that we got for it, it has specific dates when certain things when certain employees needed to be hired. Are
Yes,
they still
ma'am.
going by that? Because they said that March 1st was the first one to do the grantees. If I'm reading that right, the grant manager by March 1st.
Yeah,
And
so
then-
we got an extension on that because they were still adjusting, and with Nicole coming out and Honey coming in, Baker coming out, there were some adjustments. We had to rearrange some things, so dates got put up. So it doesn't hurt us. It doesn't prevent us from being able to move forward. They have those extensions put in place to give us time to fill those specific needs. Those,
Did we put applications out for this position?
it gets posted. It got posted online.
Okay.
On
Did we
Indeed.
get-
How many applied for it?
It's actively running right now.
So for
we're
the
in
manager's
collection
position?
for the project management position.
Oh, I thought you said you just hired Honey for that.
Honey is the program director, so she's our procurement person / our grant management person, but that position is being funded under this grant. So initially, when this first started,
So let me ask you this,
Yes.
when did that application, so if they said we weren't supposed to hire until March 1st, when did the application go out and Ms. Farr applied for it? Because she came in before March 1st.
she came in before, so
Mhm.
when we started implementing this grant and Mr. Baker was still here,
Mhm.
that is what he was using that position for. So that position, initially, he was going to have funded by the director for that in this particular position. So
So-
that's how that transition came into play. So now we had to work with some of the decisions that he made and people that he put in place in certain areas. And that's where the funding has kind of been filtering through.
So is
Or
Job Plus already paying for her salary, or is?
No, no.
No money has been drawn down for jobs.
Well,
Then
Not
how
done
does
yet.
she get hired and getting paid by us if Job Plus is paying for the employees for this grant?
That was Mr. Baker's approval.
So
I don't have the authority to go against what my boss is telling me to do.
Right,
So
right,
that was
right,
one of the
right.
issues
You just
that-
explained to us how you came to be in this situation.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I
So-
can tell you specifically what happened was there was a procurement position, which we, if you listen to different people talking about needing RFPs, and it's all a mess, basically, because there was no consolidated procurement here. So there was a procurement person on the organizational chart, and that was approved. Nicole was hired as the procurement, hired in that bucket
You're right.
called procurement/grant manager.
Mhm.
Well, so far she's done no procurement, but, and that would not come from the grant anyway. Whatever portion of her salary that she devotes to procurement will be paid by the housing authority. But the portion that she does for the Jobs Plus grant will come from the grant. If it's 50/50, we'll do it that way.
That's right.
So is Nicole still here?
No,
No.
no.
So Honey
It's
is in this,
replacement.
is in that procurement position.
Procurement/grant.
So I seen Nicole's name on, did she do something? Her name is on this grant, so she,
Yeah, so initially, she was working the grant. She was zooming in on the meetings that Isaac and Ms. Shaw and Ms. Miller were in, and some other staff members, with working on getting this implemented so we can start moving forward to getting these services out for our residents. So initially, yes, that's what she was doing. And then when she turned in her notice to leave and Baker moved her out and made the decision to have Honey replace her, because she did apply.
But was Honey already on staff?
No, she had applied for a few of the positions that we had vacancies in.
Okay, and so, anyway, she's in this position of procurement, but you all are saying that the way it's slash grant management.
Yes, sir.
And so because of grant management, you could pull some dollars from the Jobs Plus.
That's
grant.
correct.
That's the way Baker has set it up.
That's correct.
Now, is that the staff's recommendation of how to fund that position? The procurement, I mean, we're gonna have to have a procurement.
We need a procurement person.
We need
For Brunswick
for
Housing
strictly
Fund.
to do
Yes.
procurement stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, Ms. Spar, Honey Spar, is very, very knowledgeable and experienced when it comes to grants. And she has done a extensive amount of work in the short time that she's been employed with us. So she's definitely got the skill set to work these grants and then some. She's familiar with our community, the resources and so forth, but we definitely need a procurement person. We have not had a designated procurement staff member in the housing authority since I've been here. It kind of, yeah,
Right.
and it's definitely detrimental to us being able to move forward.
So let me get this understanding. So we need one for Brunswick Housing Authority and one for Job Plus. Are we gonna use them both together or separately?
Right now, we can use them together.
Yeah, right now you can use them together. I would recommend, me personally would recommend looking at it saying, before we go and change something and create another budget debacle or a bump in the road, let's sit down and really let it function like this, see how it goes, and let it move forward. The hardest part of any of this grant stuff getting started is getting it started, getting these processes in place so we can move forward. Once we start moving forward, time frees up and you can start really being better with time management and getting things done. If it comes to the fact that, look, we're just getting involved in too many grants, which is a great thing, and she doesn't have the time to spare that is needed for procurement, then we can definitely revisit that, post it, and get a solid person for that. So that's definitely something to think about in the future. But I would give us an opportunity before we start allotting other monies in this area. Let's see how this can work a little bit. Just keep really close tabs on it. And if it starts showing that, look, this isn't working, then we can revisit and say, hey, we really need to get funding for this procurement position.
So also has on this, it says that we had to hire a coordinator
So the coordinator will
by
work up
April
under
the
the,
3rd. So
the
have we
3rd.
hired one
So
yet?
the problem with this grant was, the funding that came in with this grant that is strictly for personnel also includes benefits. The problem with that was, if you were to take all of these positions that the grant provides, or gives you the opportunity to provide, it doesn't say you have to have all of them,
Right.
but if you take all of those positions and you benefit them to the way that our benefit system is, it's not enough money. It's just not enough money. So the idea behind that was, you have your program director, you have a program manager, and the counselor or case management folks that are sitting at each AMP are independent contractors. Then with that saying, then they get their salary amount that's set in the grant, that's what their wages are. Well, we're not required to pay benefits on an independent contractor. Because other than that, if you were to bring them all in and say they're employees, you're here till, the extent of this grant, and then they're not here anymore, there's no way to provide the level of benefits that we do, because we pay 100% of the benefits for our employees. You extend that grant, if it gets renewed past the 5 years, well, guess what? Now they're vested with the housing authority, okay? And when they become employees, you're not only talking about medical, dental, vision, you're talking about, once they're eligible for retirement, after their 6-month probationary period, that's 14.75% of their gross earnings that week. So the benefit amount is just too astronomical to support having every single one of them an employee.
where we're at now,
Right.
and I know this is just an update, so from us, I guess we just need you all to go forward with what you're doing right now,
Okay,
so that we just stay in compliance.
absolutely.
And then we'll look at how to sit down and make sure that we make this successful.
Yeah. And even if you want, we can always set up a time for Honey to come, and, maybe we can take these times in these meetings and have her come and give you like an overall update on where they're at. So it keeps you in the loop with those things. That's not a problem.
That would be nice.
Absolutely.
For any new hire, you need to come before us.
Absolutely.
So is there is it a posted announcement out for the coordinator? Because it said it had to be due by April the 3rd.
So we have to have the program manager in place before that. So there are extensions. That document that you're looking at was the one that I believe Nicole put together when she started working on that. So there are some extensions that have gone through, so that way we're still in line. And I believe that one is not due until now the end of the month. So, but I'll make sure we get you an updated one of those.
Okay.
What's the position that's open right now?
The program manager.
Okay.
And then from there, we'll have case managers or caseworkers, and what they will be at every AMP site, and they will work directly hands-on with the residents in those AMPs.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. The next item for board update is HUD responses, open items.
I'm working on those responses. I think that email that came out maybe a week and a half ago or whatever, and I responded to Christina Miller saying, a lot of this stuff. Basically, I've been working with Erica Alderman for the past, she's another HUD employee, works with Christina, and she told me when we started, she was like, okay, we need to, I got your response, I want to go through these things with you. And she told me, she said, instead of you sending me all of this information that I'm going to ask you for, I want to do it one by one. So I'm asking for this right now, and I've sent her that. That was over 2 weeks ago. I know the next week she was out of the office in the field somewhere. I don't know where she was last week. I've emailed her again this week. I haven't heard anything back. So when Christina Miller sent out the updated thing with open and closed items, a lot of that stuff I'd already sent to them, but haven't heard any feedback back from them. And I still haven't heard back even from Christina. So,
So the things they ask you for, a specific line item, you already sent that to them?
I mean, I don't know if I've sent every single thing, and I don't wanna overwhelm them, you know, like
Right.
Erica said, you know, don't send me everything at once, but I just haven't gotten any feedback from them since I've sent them stuff, so.
Can you tell us what you sent to them already, kind of, sort of, to answer where we at with the HUD report?
And Ms.
It's-
Dyer, are you CCing Ben? You?
It's whoever is on, like this one is an email from April 4th. Yeah, Ben's on here. All the commissioners are on here, and this is just like a list from this email from last week that I sent to Christina, you know, explaining all the things, some of the things that I saw that were listed as open on there that I'd either already sent them or still had, you know, a question about, or that they need to talk to somebody else about this
Because
one.
I know they said they didn't see, they wanted you to show you where certain monies was paid back because it wasn't
That's-
shown.
That's what I sent that to Erica yesterday. She said, if you can get me a way, with the interfund balances, when you pay it out of one fund but you're charging it to another. She said, if you can just give me a place where I can see that. Because I see that you're taking a total, because what I provided her was like a copy of the bank transfer form, you know, printout from French screen from the bank. And the general ledger balance in the interfund account that is due, like from Georgia Hat back to general fund. And I'm like, here, I transfer this. She goes, show me what is made up in that account. So that's what I sent her an example yesterday. I said, this is for the month of July. This is the bank transfer. This is the GL balance in total. Here's the detailed general ledger balance, so you can see where I call them transition contractors, where their payments were included in that total that was transferred back to general fund. So that, and I sent that to her yesterday. I said, does this give you, because I didn't want to send her 6 months worth.
Right.
I said, here's 1 month's worth. Does this satisfy you?
So anything that you already sent her, you're still waiting on a reply, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so they haven't closed out anything from any information that you sent?
Not that I know of.
How far are we into this? So we don't know how deep.
I don't
Probably got to
know,
go.
and that's just the stuff, you know, that's like, some of the items on there that are in other areas, like the fees, the old fees from 2017. You know, that was something that I think Kim was working on. So I don't know where that one stands.
So they don't, each department that has an issue, they don't, have to answer. They don't collectively give you that answer and then send it to you so you can send it to her. They send it differently.
I'm guessing.
You talking about our department?
Yeah, because she said Ms. Ogden has some things to answer.
Yeah, I mean, everything
So-
didn't fall under
I understand
finance,
that.
so
Are you the only, so everybody is a contact person to answer these questions? They don't give it to you and you send it in?
we haven't done it that way because
Okay.
we did our own responses originally.
Right.
And Kim's been out of office for 2 weeks anyway.
Yes.
So,
Go ahead.
I will say, they had any questions that they had for me, they actually emailed me directly
Okay,
to ask them.
okay.
and this email did go to Kim also, so, yeah.
So did they respond back to your question, your answers to them?
No, I never received a response back. I never received another question either.
Okay.
Is it possible,
That's a good
Ben, for you to coordinate this?
I can try, and then I think, you know, we've talked about having this meeting with HUD. It'd be nice for them to say, okay, we've gotten this from Ms. Dyer, we've gotten this from, and here's the current list of open items after everything staff's submitted, so we can know. As I said, I think we started with a list like this, and you're probably down to a list like
Right.
that, and I just don't know that anybody knows what's still there.
Right.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But, the findings or whatever they call the open items, Ms. Dyer, for there's a different criteria. You're able to transfer and say, well, okay, HUD might not have allowed this, but we're using the state funding that we have to take care of it. So the requirements for that item is different. The standard is different for the state.
For our non-federal, like, what they're saying, what HUD is saying that like legal bills, for example, anything that involves board, employee, any sort of interaction like that, you can't use federal funds for any of that. So basically, because our locally owned funds or Georgia HAP funds, either way, you can use either one of those to pay those bills. You can use your non-federal money to pay those bills. So, I mean, to me, a simple bank transfer takes care of that problem. And a journal entry to, move the expense.
And so as long as the board has approved it.
The bill in the beginning, well, as not most of them, some of them go back to, when Angie was still here. And so, I mean, she approved the bills. It wasn't board approved, because the board doesn't normally approve the bills. But it was as long as it is approved by the person responsible for
Either
signing
you're
off
saying
on
the
it.
executive director or the board approved it, then I'm just talking about the state requirements right now. Then those things, I guess my concern is the state coming back at some point and saying that this is not allowable.
But that we're not state funded by anything.
So what is the Georgia HAP?
Georgia HAP.
Locally owned funds, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, locally owned is our, the two annexes and the houses over on Tillman, and the only income basically that we get for that is rental income. And it's all non-federal, and so we can basically do not what we want with it, but what we designate it for. Georgia HAP is also a non-federal thing. It comes from our part ownership of a company that has a contract with HUD to do inspections and other things.
Okay.
So, and that money is, ours to do as we see fit. And what I've done just for my own, it just made more sense to me. All of the bills, and these were primarily in fiscal year 21 leading into 22. Some of them came from Ben Hartman's firm, some of them came from Catherine Bowman in Savannah. Those bills, I charged those, took them out of federal funds, moved them into locally owned to distinguish them from everything that happened from 7/1 forward, because I'm calling all of those expenses related to the transition. And so I'm using Georgia HAP for that just basically because we have a lot more money in Georgia HAP than we do in locally owned. And I just wanted the distinction made in my mind, at least I know when I look at legal expense in locally owned, I know that is stuff that happened prior to, 7/1/2022. And so everything going forward was like transition type expense. But,
and all of that, whether it's all subject to procurement policies. I mean, so I don't know that it's necessarily state regulation, but it's your policies and procedures as the Brunswick Housing Authority. So even though I'm not paid out of the federal funds, that hiring legal services is subject to procurement policies that you have. That there are policies and procedures for how those dollars are spent. It's just not spending public dollars.
But I do want to
Not
say
spending federal dollars.
one little thing about procurement, because it's been mentioned several places. Yeah, we definitely need a procurement person because we're uncovering since this time last year. I know Angie kind of used John as her procurement person to handle some of the stuff that she needed to get procured. But there was no central person. You couldn't go to one person at the Housing Authority and say, hey, where are your RFPs or your RFQs? You didn't have that. You didn't know what was coming up. So, not picking on you, but I know that
I've been screaming
y'all's
for
Yeah, but
y'all's is expired.
right.
Yeah.
In looking for something the other day in the vault, I found an old an RFP that was put out in 2015 for our collection services. Okay, so we're still using them, so I'm sure that's up. Mr. RFP right here with resident services, those, some things we have RFPs for, some things we don't. It just makes no sense. Somebody has got to corral all this stuff and get it where everybody, where there's a calendar and you know exactly.
But just to say this, if I knew back then what the issue was, because no one said what the issue was.
I didn't know.
In the old administration with
Yeah,
the Lego. So if I knew what the issue was, then those questions wouldn't have came up, but we would have dealt with it right
Yeah,
then and
I
there.
mean, when the HUD, I knew that your contract had expired when HUD, in the HUD report, they wanted a copy of the contract.
Right.
And then I looked at the date on it and I said, oh my gosh. But because there was no person in charge of procurement, I didn't handle it. Angie did, she's gone, she didn't say anything, it just,
Right, okay.
it was a mess.
Well, she's not here to defend herself.
Well, I mean, it just,
Yeah.
it just was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we just need to be more organized and open and transparent. So that's why a lot of maintenance questions weren't met. Yeah.
And we'll have quite a few RFPs going out
Did we-
for, resident services.
Yeah,
type
Yeah.
stuff.
down to
And
get your blessings on that.
Wait a minute, okay. Did we ever
Yeah.
nail down a date for HUD to come in?
We
Yeah,
have not yet.
okay.
I'll work on that, and I think, unless you all have other ideas for what, that she's also sort of said, what do you all wanna talk about? I think, number one would be, what are the remaining open items after staff's, what else do you need from Brunswick Housing in order to close out all the items? What else is it that you all wanna?
And if the HUD hasn't looked at what Ms. Dyer already sent in, that some of that information might be in there, so we might be
I think
waiting
we'd
for
wanna
them.
let them digest what they've
Yeah.
gotten from staff so that that's all
Right.
sort of filtered out, so they're not talking about things we've already
Right.
had staff give.
Yeah, I was
And so
gonna
by the
follow
time
up,
we meet with them, they can give us a clear balance
I
of
would
where
hope.
we at and what we have left.
I would think I
Yeah.
would think that's right.
I was gonna follow up with Christina and Erica this week, just to say, hey, haven't heard from you guys.
Mhm. Okay. That's all with HUD. Are we finished with HUD? Finished with HUD? The next on the agenda is the finance department transition. What is that?
That's
That's
your retirement.
the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know what the plans are, for the housing authority as far as hiring someone, but, I do know, and I do want to use, because there are a couple of projects in addition to what I'm about to say, that he could work on. We're under contract with Philip Gerald, and they come in and basically review, everything that I've done for year-end purposes. And do the unaudited submission of the financials to HUD. And we use them just because having basically a one person finance department, it's another set of eyes looking on all of the information. Somebody who's working with multiple housing authorities and working closely with HUD all the time, because they're also an audit firm, so that they know everything. So it's like somebody who is up to date on the most recent thing that HUD has said, whatever, they come in, they are on the ball, they get it submitted. So they're under contract to do that. On their contract, they also state that they can do other projects as needed for $150 an hour. I know a lot of smaller housing authorities use these type firms for what they call fee accounting. Instead of having an accounting department, they pay this firm to just do all of the accounting for them. Because some of the smaller housing authorities have an executive director and one maintenance person, and that's all. And so they pay for that service, but they can do all of your work. They can do certain portions, and they're kind of flexible, fee accounting firms in general. I don't know what Philip Gerald's availability is, because I didn't want to talk to him too much about this until I talked to you guys about it. But if not knowing what y'all are planning anyway, if there's any way that there's something that his firm could do to help fill in some gaps, that would be an option until somebody's hired. In addition, there's a couple of other things that just over the past 7 or 8 months, individual standalone projects that I would like to give him to do to get things correct. In the books, it's a lot of it's payroll related, but
But let me ask you this,
mhm.
if I'm understanding, didn't we say in the beginning that Nan McKay will fill in the
Nan-
finances?
No, Van McKay's a separate.
Okay.
Yeah. Separate.
But I thought, okay, I
Who is-
thought I
who is
heard
Nan?
that they.
That's a training and contracting company based out of San Francisco that specializes in housing authority stuff. They're like one of the best.
I thought I heard that in the case when you were out, that we would get them to fill in to do the finances,
mm,
okay.
No, that's something different that I also need to mention, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you guys are I don't really know what kind of availability they have. I've talked to Philip and he said that they're tentatively scheduled to come in. Generally, they come the last week of July, so I think it's July 24th. That's their normal time to come in and review everything and work with me to get everything ready to submit it.
Are they local?
They're out of Hazelwood, so they're not that far.
We do a annual audit.
Yeah, our audit is normally, our fiscal year end is June 30th, and normally the audit is like the first week of October. And I do have, I'll hand them out at the board meeting, I got the audit reports in late last week. But that, I just wanted to, I guess, get permission or whatever to put something together from Phil Gerald, see if he could fill, because there's quite a few things that he could help out with. In addition to year end, just to possibly fill in gaps if there's a gap in time between me and the next person. I mean, I don't know.
Is Gwen Williams still here?
She's
Working
here.
in your office?
Yeah, she's here. And I can give her part of it.
So you talking about putting together a recommendation from them with
Yeah.
some costs? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
You want me to talk about Nan McKay?
Yeah.
Okay. Nan McKay, late last year, we put out an RFP for some help in the Section 8 department, help expertise in Section 8. And that RFP was, we got one response and it was Nan McKay. We also got a non-response from another company because they said they didn't have the capacity to do it right now. So we chose Nan McKay, but then Mr. Baker put it on the back burner. Didn't want to pursue it anymore, but based on the current staff being so new to the department, and it's been a while since we've had anyone with years of knowledge of Section 8 in that department. Even Gwen, who is now an AP, she worked in Section 8. She knows, she's probably the most knowledgeable overall about Section 8, but she will admit herself that the person who trained her didn't fully train her. So, and I'm not knocking anybody, and I'm not blaming anybody. It's just a matter of everybody almost in Section 8 is new to this. So my recommendation to Mr. Baker at the time was, we need to get somebody like Nan McKay to come in and basically take your Section 8 department and look at it from the ground up and just make sure your procedures are right, make sure your setup is right, make sure everybody knows the program that, I mean, not just for CMAP, but for everything.
Right, because he took a lot of site managers and put them in Section 8
there's
program.
not anybody who, the last time when Hope Morris was here, you know, she had Section 8 experience and she was a housing manager. When Jamie came in, she didn't have public housing or Section 8 experience, so she didn't know. When Joyce became the housing manager, Joyce had only had experience in public housing. So, I mean, she did intake for Section 8, but that was it. So, I mean, and it's not anything against anybody, it's just that they're not exposed to it. Just like, I mean, I worked here for a long time. I don't know a lot about the program itself. I couldn't train anybody on how to do or what needed to be done within their day-to-day operations. I just think that it needs some kind of outsider coming in and say, this is how you run your Section 8 department. But that's just me making a plea.
Mhm. We need to do that. Just
I mean,
like-
because they could help train the new
Right,
people
right.
the right way.
We hope our new ED can handle all of it.
Yeah,
Some help.
because I've got to get out of here
Okay,
by 11:30, but
All right.
let's try to finish up.
all right, so that's all with that transition, okay? And your date of going is still July 1st? Okay, all right, so next thing on the board updates is upcoming deadlines over the next 6 months.
Do you have a list of those? Did you put that in here?
I was just, last thing I did was scribble them down yesterday afternoon. But, I mean, I can email them, but,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
gonna need them in writing,
yeah,
but go
Yeah.
ahead.
yeah, I didn't have a chance to do this and we were,
Mhm,
and if I miss anything, just let me know because this is what I know.
mhm.
We have a obligation date for Capital Fund 2019 of 4/15.
What is
So-
that?
What is that?
That means we have to have, for that capital fund, we have to have contracts signed by that date. To obligate to, that means to hold the funds. So
That's
if we
April
don't.
15th? Okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So are there contracts we have to spend it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we already have it.
Also, well, I'm sorry, before that is the agency plan, but we already know that, that's April, whatever. So April 15th is that one. Let's see, number 2, the budget has to be approved by 6:30. And that, you know, any salary
Okay.
changes or anything like that that are gonna be in the budget need to be incorporated, need to be in there prior to 6:30 so that it can be put in the budget.
Mhm.
The unaudited financial data schedule, that deadline is August 31st, but that's something that Philip Gerald's firm will be submitting. The CMAP you have until some point early August to submit it.
What is CMAP again?
That's Section
Section
8
8.
vouchers. We have 60 to 90 days from the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
July, August, September.
What's that deadline?
It's sometime it's sometime in August.
60 days.
days.
from
So
the
it would be-
end.
okay, so
From the end of the fiscal year,
Okay.
June.
Oh, okay, so it would be the end of August, because normally Angie would
Yeah.
come in and say, and get the board to approve it at
Right.
the August board meeting.
Right.
Okay.
60 days from June 60. Mhm.
And then the only other thing, the audit. The audit will be here, they will be here, last week of September, first week of October. That's generally when they come. Those are the only deadlines that I know of
Okay.
for the next 6 months.
All right.
If there's anything else, commissioners?
We were supposed to go into executive session to finish our discussion from
Right.
yesterday.
Okay.
Do you have the recommendation where it needs your signatures? Or,
There was a list of a couple other items that needed your
yeah,
signature.
I just gave her the
Okay.
bank forms.
Okay, I'll do that after.
Okay.
You have the craft.
That, and I forwarded you that email last night, which he sent to me, but not to you. I forwarded it to you, Commissioner Bailey. He said they gave it to Kraft to sign first, and he was hoping to get it back this morning. But it hadn't came
They said they
in,
didn't
unless
get it
he
yet.
called me while I was in here. He didn't bring it, but It's not here yet, but it's just,
There's one that had flags on it, it must be from Jamie's. I'll go get
Can
it.
you,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so that's a motion, so we can go into executive session.
I got a quick
Yes.
on RFP, because people's been calling.
Yeah, we gonna have to probably address that later.
All right. I entertain a motion.
I motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposes?
Right.
That motion carried 4-0.